Okay, so just like linear equations, we can also solve quadratics. We do have a slightly different approach here, so we can't just add and subtract and divide. Quadratics we generally solve by factoring, and that's one reason we factored so much so far. So looking at x squared and 5x, they both have an x in common. That leaves you an x here, and since the x is gone, that leaves a 5 over here. And then we use a property that's called the zero property of multiplication, and that would be that if you have two numbers that multiply to 0, and x represents the number, so does x plus 5, then you know that one of the numbers has to be 0, so x could be 0, or maybe both of the numbers could be 0, so x plus 5 could be 0 as well. Okay, that you still have to solve, like a linear, and so we have two answers, 0 and -5. Now keep in mind that saying that 0 and a -5 are solutions or answers means that they should work. So let's pick the -5. It seems to be a little bit more difficult to use. So if you plug that in, the original equation, then this should work. And a -5 squared is 25, and 5 times a -5 is a -25. And you see you do get something that works. So we'll do a couple more. X squared minus 4, that's a plus or minus pattern. So it could be x plus 2, x minus 2. Solving that, bringing it into the two parts, you get x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 2 is 0. This one gives you -2. This one, if you add 2 on both sides, gives you +2. One way this is often written then would be, since it's the same number, plus or minus 2 would be saying the same thing. So these two ways of writing it mean the same thing. We also will see a lot of general trinomials. So put a 1 here, look for two numbers that multiply to 1, and two numbers that multiply to 10. Check with the cross product. So 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 plus 5 is 7. So x squared plus 7x plus 10 factors to x plus 2 times x plus 5. Now keep in mind we're doing this so that you can split it. So that you can say, well, either x plus 2 is 0, or maybe x plus 5 is 0, or maybe both. And that would be fine as well. Solving it, that gives you -2. And this one, if you subtract 5 on both sides, it gives you a -5. Occasionally, you'll see some quadratics that are slightly disorganized. So what I mean with that is that the 7x is just by itself over here. So you can't solve it unless it says 0 on this side anyway, well, on one of the sides. So let's move the 7x so that we have everything on one side. And I'm going to write it in order right away, so that 7x minus 7x is 0. So in order means that I have an x squared, then an x, and then a number. And then you need to see if you can factor. So this one, I believe, is x minus 8 and x plus 1. So if x minus 8 is 0, that would be when x is 8, then this would work. Or if x plus 1 is 0, which occurs when x is a -1, then we also have an expression that's true. Occasionally the problem is a little bit more involved because now it's not just an x squared, it's a 4x squared. But also notice that the 15 here is on the wrong side. So even though 4x squared minus 4x factors, that would be, I think that's right. Nope. I should have checked it while I did it. So they both have a 4 in common. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Leaves an x here, but that leaves an subtract 1 over here. Now you can't say that this means that either 4x is 15 or x minus 1 is 15. If you add, for example, 1 on both sides, you get 16, then let's check it. Is 4 times 16 squared minus 4 times 16, is that really going to be 15? Well, 16 squared is 256. And 4 times 16 is 64. And I think you can see that it's not going to work. Okay, so again, the reason it's called a zero product property is because you need to make this x squared equals 0. So let's subtract 15 on both sides and see if you can factor. So now we're looking for 4, so maybe we need a 2 and a 2, and 15 is 5 times 3. We do need a negative, since that's a negative 4. If I make this a negative 5, I hope that it works. So 2 times 3 is 6. That's a negative 10. I get a negative 4, and that matches the sum that I have here. So this means that I could write this as 2x minus 5, because that was a negative 5. And then the other one is 2x plus 3 equals 0. So 2x minus 5 is 0. That would be 2x is 5, so x is 5 over 2. 2x plus 3 is 0. So 2x would be a negative 3. X is a negative 3 over 2. So 2 answers again. Okay, here we have a lot of stuff going on. But I do notice that I have an x squared here. And let's just see what happens if I bring everything on the left side in this case. So I'm going to add 2x squared y. Okay, and I generally I prefer to work with, that means I have to add it on the left as well, by the way. But what I was trying to say is that I prefer to work with positive x squareds. So moving it to the left did that for me. So I need to have 30y over here as well. So now that side says 0 and I still had 16xy. Okay, now let's check. Do they have any numbers in common? Well, they all have a 2. And they all have a y as well. So 2 y's in common. 2 divided by 2 is 1. The x squared is still here, the y is gone. 30 divided by 2 is 15. The y was factored out. And 16 divided by 2 is 8. The x was not factored out, but the y was. Okay, that's a product. So that means that either 2y is 0, which occurs when y is 0, or x squared plus 15 plus 8x is equal to 0. Order is wrong. Let's put the 8x where it belongs and then see if you can factor it. Okay, so don't try to factor it out of order. That doesn't work. So I need a little more room. 8 and 15. So 15 is 5 times 3 and 5 plus 3 is 8. So the other two answers would be a negative 5 and a negative 3. And that's factoring to help you solve quadratics. Thank you.